Hello, everybody, and welcome to Commodity Culture, where our goal is to make you a better investor in the commodities sector. My name is Jesse Day. Before we dive in, standard disclaimer: nothing here is investment advice. Do your own due diligence. And today's guest is the CEO of First Phosphate, a mineral development company fully dedicated to extracting and purifying phosphate for the production of cathode active material for the lithium iron phosphate battery industry. It's John Passalacqua. Great to have you back on the show.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me, Jesse. Appreciate it.
I want to get started with a broad macro overview of the phosphate sector as you see it at present. So, what are the main themes and trends you're watching in the phosphate market that you think investors should be paying attention to right now?
Yeah, well, I think the main thing we've always been watching, which hasn't changed, is just the amount of purified phosphoric acid that's going to be needed to make LFP battery, and sort of what's out there, who the players are, and where are the capacity constraints, and will there be capacity increase? If you look at some of the statistics by CRU Group, which is a group that follows this commodity, they don't see any kind of expansion of the capabilities to produce purified phosphoric acid in the West, right up until 2045. And yet we're going to need, 2, 3 times the amount of currently produced purified phosphoric acid to make LFP battery. So something has to give. There will have to be no LFP battery, or there have to be more purified phosphoric acid. So we're working on there being more purified phosphoric acid.
So there's some news coming out of China that's quite interesting. They're considering export bans on iron-based cathode technology. I want to read you something from Chemical and Engineering News. It said, China's Ministry of Commerce has proposed restricting the export of technologies for producing lithium iron phosphate. Nearly all LFP is made in China, and if the restrictions are implemented, companies outside of China could struggle to catch up. Give us your thoughts on this news and how it underlines the importance of domestic phosphate production.
Yeah. So first of all, let's understand that directive was put in by the Biden administration just as he was leaving a few weeks ago. And the tit for tat with semiconductors restrictions were put in by Biden. And China responded back, well, if you're going to restrict us having access to semiconductors, well, what we're going to do is we're going to come back and restrict access to LFP technology. And everybody went, what the hell is that? What is LFP technology? So it really validated the case around the importance of LFP battery, and validated everything we've been doing here at First Phosphate for the past 2 to 3 years. So basically, what's also important to understand is that LFP technology was started in North America. It was started between Canada and the U.S., University of Texas, University of Montreal, Hydro-Quebec, and also a research center out in France, France proper. And it was good now that Texas. So they did commercialize it, and then after that, it sort of made its way over to China. Some of it under license, some of it not under license. Uh, that whatever happened happened, but China has developed technology, improved it since then. So now I guess it's kind of considered their technology now, the sense that the patents are gone on the technology, and whatever happened happened. But there's still the means of being able to make the technology here in North America. It's not a huge secret. I mean, we have access to 3 methods of making LFP CAM. So I don't know how much of a bark that really is on China's part. Um, but it's going to be interesting to see what the new directive is under the Trump administration. We've seen some executive orders come in, and we've heard a lot more new kind of barking on both sides, but we just don't know what that's going to look like. But certainly, China is saying, hey, LFP technology, we need that because we make batteries, and we have, almost 100% of the battery market worldwide in terms of LFP batteries. So we're not going to give that up to anybody. We want to continue to control this, I guess, monopoly, if you will, or sort of a national monopoly on it, even though there are various, many companies within China who make it. But the national monopoly on it, we'll see where that goes. But obviously, it bodes well for the West. The West is going to have to get some kind of independence around LFP, and that's what First Phosphate's been building here since the very beginning.
I want to touch on the North American Inflation Reduction Act here because it mandates that electric battery production must be onshored within the coming year. Walk us through how that could affect the phosphate market in North America.
Yeah, so let's understand the Inflation Reduction Act was put in by Biden, and I think the incoming administration has kind of scrapped half of that, or is planning to scrap it. But again, the premise behind that, the Inflation Reduction Act, was actually started by the first Trump administration, where we wanted to onshore a lot of our manufacturing. And then Biden had really a bent on green energy, so he wanted to try to onshore green energy as much as possible. I believe the new administration wants to onshore everything that it can possibly. So yes, we'll see a continuing uh, trend towards onshoring as much as possible. But yes, you do get into a problem when you try to onshore LFP in the fact that there's nobody producing LFP in North America yet. And also there's not enough phosphate, and there's especially not enough of the igneous-based phosphate, which can produce a lot of purified phosphoric acid. Like right now in North America, we barely have enough phosphate for fertilizer, which is a sedimentary type. Um, there's groups again suggesting that by 2035, about 61% of our phosphate for agriculture will be exhausted. So we don't even have enough for agriculture. Can you imagine having enough for batteries? And the type that's required for batteries is ultra pure, and you pretty much need the igneous rock that we have in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, Quebec, where most of that gets converted to purified phosphoric acid, and none of it goes into the fertilizer stream. So we at First Phosphate do have the resource to be able to give North America the independence on lithium iron phosphate battery. It's a very rare resource. It represents only 1% of the world's phosphate reserves that are in this igneous and anorthosite hard rock. So we have that as North America. We also have the technology to be able to do it. So we're able to fit into that equation perfectly. And there's nobody that's going to stop that trend, because LFP battery is massive. It's needed all around the world. I know that incoming administration, President Trump, has made it clear that that there's no interest in wind turbines under his administration, but solar is going to continue. Stationary energy storage of some form, the Tesla battery walls, if you will. When you buy a Tesla, they install that in your garage as well. Basically small scooters, bikes, a lot of that runs on LFP. Also, portable batteries, a lot of that runs on LFP. And of course, a lot of the automobile and bus batteries run on LFP. So, I think what you're going to find with the incoming administration is, yes, it's about energy, but it's about energy that makes sense economically. And there is a very strong economic argument around LFP. It's not theoretical. It's out there. I mean, uh, China is producing millions of tons of LFP cathode active material and supplying the world with these LFP batteries. And that's not going anywhere. There's a strong economic argument around that. So yes, you can expect all of that to slowly come onto shore in North America. Maybe even by some deals that the new administration might do with some of the Chinese companies, saying, okay, look, you have the technology, you want to work in North America, that's fine, but set up shop here in North America. We want the jobs to be left over here. And then at that point, it'll become a scramble of, okay, well, where do we get the phosphate to do this? And that's what First Phosphate's been building for a very long time here. For example, I've been watching some of the calls around Tesla. Everyone's asking Tesla, well, you've now moved to LFP batteries for your energy storage systems. You've moved to LFP battery for a lot of your vehicles, but it's in about 50% of your vehicles. But where on earth are you going to get the phosphate, and how are you ever going to localize all that in North America? So a lot of question marks here. A lot of answers on the side of First Phosphate.
Yeah, and current North American phosphate production is projected to decline by 61% by 2047. I believe
2037.
we were speaking 2037. Okay, and I believe we were speaking earlier that Morocco at the moment produces most of the world's phosphate. Are there any other major sources of phosphate around the world? And with this decline in North American production, where is the supply going to come from?
Yeah, so again, Jesse, I mean, a lot of that phosphate, 95% of it is in sedimentary rock. It's good for making fertilizer. It's not, it can make some purified phosphoric acid. Most of the producers of phosphate, of fertilizer-based phosphates, they don't have the purity or the capital or the interest in producing out the purified phosphoric acid, which would kind of be almost, the skimming off the top. It would be the purest form of what they produce. So you have to really break out the market between, what is sedimentary rock and what is fertilizer-based phosphate and what is battery-based phosphate. So it seems like most of it is in Morocco for sedimentary rock. They can make some purified phosphoric acid off of the top of it. And most of the other smaller producers around the world, very few of them are using sedimentary rock to make purified phosphoric acid. And the ones that are usually using volcanic rock, like we have igneous rock, to make a lot of purified phosphoric acid. So you're going to really need to go into these uh, volcanic igneous rock-based phosphate deposits to be able to make a lot of the purified phosphoric acid for battery, regardless of where the fertilizer market goes. And the sedimentary rock, yes, on the fertilizer side, it looks like it's all pushing towards Morocco.
So let's discuss how First Phosphate fits into the picture. I had you on the show back in May of 2023, and a lot has happened at the company since then. So maybe give us an overview of the company where you stand at present.
Yeah, so since we were on last year, so our Beijing-Lamarche resource, we did the mineral resource estimate. It showed very large resource. It showed about you know about 250 million tons of very pure igneous phosphate that can be basically cleaned into almost 100% apatite, which is 41%, 40 to 41% pure apatite, which then makes the cleanest purified phosphoric acid out there in the world, the largest volume. We did all that on lab scale. Then we moved into PEA, which is preliminary economic assessment. The resource could go on for about 23 years, and that's just on surface, and that would be a $2.1 billion net present value. It's got an IRR of 37%, so very, very high numbers. And that alone, for the next 23 years, could produce 350 gigawatt hours of LFP cathode active material, the phosphate part of that. And that, just to give you an example, 350 gigawatt hours would be half of the entire fleet of automobiles being produced in North America, that being Canada, US, and Mexico in 1 year. So half of that could electrify half of those vehicles if they move to LFP. And in fact, the projections until recent have been that 50% of all vehicles in North America should be moving into some form of battery, most likely LFP by 2030. So it's quite a massive amount of phosphate that can do a lot of development of LFP battery for North American pursuits. So we did that. We signed a collaboration agreement with our Indigenous group. They're willing to come in as financial partners in the project, and they're also willing to fast track the permitting as much as they can since it's on their ancestral lands. We've also gotten the license to purify phosphate concentrate into purified phosphoric acid from our partner Prayon in Belgium, the largest producer of purified phosphoric acid in the world, and with the best technology. We struck a deal with GKN Hoganese, which are the largest atomizers of iron in the world, because we have a secondary recovery of iron on our property, and we would be sending down to them the iron that they would then be atomizing and sending it back to us in the form of iron powder to make iron phosphate. Iron phosphate is the precursor for lithium iron phosphate. So it's quite amazing that we've been able to get two recoveries out of our deposit. And one is iron and one is phosphate. And those two are what you need to make FP, iron phosphate, the precursor to lithium iron phosphate powder. So we're able to make both of those through these agreements that we have with GKN and with Prayon Technologies. That's an exceptional development. We've also signed some offtake. We signed some offtake for a portion of our phosphate coming out of our mine, and also for our phosphoric acid. So a certain portion of our production is now off-taken. That helps to make our project bankable. And if you also look recently, we've unveiled our plans for making a very small 10,000 ton iron phosphate plant in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, Quebec, that will take iron and phosphate and make that into iron phosphate precursor. 10,000 tons is the smallest that you can be in commercial production, getting outside of pilots and bench. So it's commercial technology. It's the ability to make iron phosphate and to make it in a reasonable size that where we can get financing for that plant. So we're moving forward on all of those points right now, and we should be moving into our feasibility study very shortly here on the phosphate mine.
Well, a lot going on at the company. You're not simply just extracting phosphate. So let's discuss your vertically integrated production plan from upstream to midstream to downstream. You touched on some aspects of it there, but maybe if you could give us a bit of a deeper dive.
Yeah, that's great, Jesse. So, we kind of look at ourselves as a backwards integrated technology company, or if you will, a forward integrated mining project. The LFP supply chain does not exist in North America. So what it starts is with a pure source of phosphate that can make a lot of purified phosphoric acid. So that would be our mine at Beijing-Lamarche in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, Quebec. And then from there, we have to take that phosphate material and turn it into phosphate acid. So that's the second transformation, if you will, of the material into purified phosphoric acid. And then the third step of that is taking that purified phosphoric acid together with iron and making iron phosphate and lithium iron phosphate powder. So that's the vertically integrated plant. It's to get from mine source all the way to LFP, cathode active material, which then will be turned over to the cell and battery manufacturers so that they can make their batteries, based on this North American feedstock. And we're active on all three of those pillars. Obviously, with the mine being the most important.
Well, could you walk us through the PEA results in a little bit more detail as well? Because you touched on that too. Walk us through the results as deeply as you can and what they mean for the company moving forward.
Yeah, so the PEA results were exceptional. First thing you have to understand is the mine is at about 50 to 70 kilometers from intermodal rail station, from the deep sea Port Saguenay, from our facilities to process into iron phosphate from the it's sitting right in an area of deep industrial base that's right near where Rio Tinto has its processing facilities, where it's processing bauxite um, into aluminum. So there's a lot of industrial workforce. We're sitting also in the valley. We're not up in the mountains, so there's less problems with snow. We are about 1 kilometer from what would be called provincial roadways, like state freeways, if you will. We are in an area with a lot of workforce. We're also in an area that had a large forestry industry that's now coming under challenge. So there's a lot of workers that want to be redeployed there. So that's all there. In terms of the PEA, there should be no surprises, and so we've got something like a $500 million USD capex, but the payback is about 2.9 years. The IRR, internal rate of return, is 37%, and the net present value is over $2 billion. So it makes for a nice, tidy, neat little project. We're 40 kilometers from a large town, so we're far enough not to disturb people, but we're close enough to be able to benefit from those logistics. You have to remember, this kind of phosphate might be worth up to $500 per ton, but you still got to move a ton of material. It's not like moving gold or copper. There's just you have to be close to infrastructure to do it. So that's where we are. We're in an area where all the infrastructure is there. The added bonus is all of this can be converted directly into purified phosphoric acid, where the very large profit margins will be. So the PEA, and everything bodes really well for the next steps. There, most of the concerns around these PEAs are always, where are the surprises? But it's pretty tight, and it seems like we got a good project to put forward here. We've got 20% contingency built into there. So the next steps are to run the feasibility study on it, and then obviously to begin the build out.
Well, obviously, management believes in the company because management and board owns 30% of the shares outstanding, a very high level of insider ownership. Can you walk us through the importance of having that much skin in the game? And are you planning to buy more shares moving forward?
Yeah, so we since January 1st, I think we've bought almost, I don't know, 150, $200,000 of stock in the market. That's between myself and two of our directors. So we're always out there buying stock almost every day. And I personally got, I think, over 1.5 million invested in the business to date. Whenever there's a round of financing, there's always somebody that steps up to the plate from our board or our management. And also we've got a lot of friends and family, money position. We've got some big family offices, and there's a lot of belief behind this. I mean, most of our directors and our management work 100% for in stock-based compensation. That's what I do. And we do all that because we believe in the company. We want to be deeper and deeper positioned in the company, and we're here to make it work. And that's a real strong signal to shareholders, right? Our shareholders are very, very comfortable and tight around us because of that. We've been going through some tough times here in the markets. The markets with electrification, related stocks have not been so forthcoming because of obviously, the Biden administration, which was seen to be favorable to EVs, and now the Trump administration is perceived to be less favorable to it. So, sometimes there are those struggles, but when you've got a really tight shareholder and management team, and you've done good by your shareholders, people stick by you. So that's very important. The fact that we are so deeply involved in the company. We continue to contribute to it, and we have the belief, and that's what takes you through some of the lulls in the market. So it's been a very positive thing to have that very tight that tight structure.
So, what can shareholders look forward to in the future here for catalysts and drivers for First Phosphate moving forward?
Yeah, so we signed a lot of MOUs over the last couple of years. You'll see that a lot of our MOUs are starting to go definitive now. So it's keep watching for definitive agreements coming up, and also we're going to launch our feasibility study here very early. That's a very important fact. I think also you have to look at the global macro environment, what happens between the China-U.S. relationship, and obviously China's thrown down the gauntlet, so to speak, on LFP technology, and see how that flushes out. And once the West really realizes that, wow, we really need to be involved in this LFP technology, we're one of the few players that have access to not only the mineral but the whole downstream supply chain to bring this together. I think we got to watch also for companies in the bigger levels, like onshoring or sourcing their materials and their LFP cathode active material supply chains in North America. That's another big one to watch this year.
And before I let you go, any final words, anything we haven't yet covered, or anything that maybe you want to emphasize to potential shareholders when it comes to First Phosphate?
I think, obviously we got a very strong team operationally. I'm very happy with the way things are going in the company, and I tend to be a perfectionist, so that's a good sign. The big value of the company is obviously our team, what we've been able to build to now, the footprint we've been able to lay out, the fact that we're ahead of any other company really in the space that's going down this road, and we're 100% focused on LFP and LFP technology. The other thing that's really important to note is our resource, right? This igneous phosphate rock that's extremely rare, and it's even rarer to have it in an area where it can be exploited so easily. The resource is a really important part of this.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put a link in the description below to the First Phosphate website, as well as social media for people who want to follow along with the company. Thank you so much, John, for coming on again and sharing your knowledge with the audience.
And I'll just say, if anybody wants to follow us in the market, or obviously we're listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange under symbol PHOS, like FOS. We're also listed in Frankfurt as KD0, and we're listed on the OTCQB as FRSPF. So feel free to follow us in the stock market. Feel free to follow us on our website at www.firstphosphate.com. And also, I would really encourage people to follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I kind of hit the beat on everything new that's coming up and all these tariff wars. And I just try to be as neutral and positive as possible, but sort of, read into it as much as I can, because it can get quite confusing out there, and people do kind of really want to know how these events affect us and how they affect the company.
Great. Well, I'll put a link to the LinkedIn profile as well. Thank you so much, John, for coming on.
Thank you, Jesse. Always appreciate it.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.